Hello everyone, Rob is the host of today's webinar from the Global Swim Series, and he's just sorting out his tech stuff. So I'm just going to jump in quickly and say hello to you all. So excited that you're here. There's nearly 70 people on this call, which is amazing. And here's Rob. I can see his video. It just flashed up. And
yeah, so did I. Let's see. There we go.
He's going to take over now. All right.
Okay, hello everybody. Happy to have you all here. My name's Robert Kent. I'm the president and founder of the Global Swim Series, and we're happy to have over 500 people sign up for this this seminar with Chloe, the GSS Marathon Swim Clinic featuring Chloë McCardel. Now I'm going to read this because the accolades are too long for me to remember, but among Chloe's past swims include 37 solo crossings of the English Channel, including 8 crossings in one season and 3 crossings in 1 week, 3 double crossings in 2010, 12, 17, and in 2015. She's the 4th person to do a nonstop triple crossing. She also has swam the English Channel 4 times in 16 days. And just this summer, she broke the men's record for the number of crossings of 34. She now has the 37. She also, just in case you think, oh, the only thing she's ever done is the English Channel, that's far from the truth. She also has won the 46-kilometer Manhattan Island Marathon swim in 2010, and as of summer 2015 holds the record for the world's longest ever unassisted open water swim of 128 kilometers between South Eleuthera Island to Nassau in the Bahamas. What's kind of relevant for a lot of you too is, aside from the interest in all this, which is what you often only get from meeting someone like this, but there's also the actual opportunity to be coached by Chloe, which is pretty spectacular. In fact, she has coached over 150 swimmers across the English Channel, which that in itself is incredible. To be coached by one of the best marathon swimmers of all time is pretty incredible. And I think I have to say this for operating the Global Swim Series too, which is a business. I think that's a good business model for you to help your swimmers and yourself achieve your goals. So I commend you for that. And for those that have tuned in and haven't swum the English Channel, like a lot of people out there, the point for this marathon swim clinic is not just if you've swum the English Channel or if you are going to or anything. There's something in here for everyone. So whether you're doing 5K, 10K, 20K, whatever, there's something you can learn here. Specifically getting on to the actual agenda of the next 90 minutes. I think what we'll do is, just for fun, we'll start out with about a bunch of what I was calling, when we were setting this up, Chloe's greatest hits. Just some very interesting stories, because that's, in my mind, marathon swimming is a lot about the adventure and the stories and sharing that with friends and the life experience that brings. And for me, I think that's one of the most important things. So this is Chloe's chance to share some of those stories, good, bad, ugly, whatever. They're all interesting. The second part of the seminar, Chloe's going to talk about some mistakes by marathon swimmers. And by a lot of us marathon swimmers have learned things the hard way. And I'm sure Chloe would agree with this, that that whole plethora of successes haven't been without any failures. And it's all the failures that is where you learn. So if we can give you a few shortcuts there from one of the best marathon swimmers in the world, take it as a golden opportunity. And the third part, Chloe's going to talk about her marathon swim training program, which again, whether you sign up for it or you don't, take advantage of it and listen to what she has to say about how to do it. And right at the end there, she's also going to tell you about some dry land episodes that she's going to be doing and swim the Ocean 7. I'll let her explain all that as we get closer. And then at the end, Dylan, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the Global Swim Series, is going to be manning the chat box here. So if you have questions as we go through, you can put them in the chat box, and Dylan will collect those, and we'll find a few that haven't been answered already, and we'll answer those, ask and answer those at the end of the seminar, depending on time. Make sure, just for fun, put where you're from in there too, just because it's fun to know. And we'll keep everyone on mute just for logistics reasons. Well, one thing too that other people have been asking is if there's going to be a recording of this. Chloe started recording it when I couldn't figure out how to turn my mic on or my video. So maybe we'll edit that out. But yes, it is being recorded, and we'll either post it somewhere, or as everyone is registered, maybe we'll email it out after. But yes, we are doing that, and we'll get that out there. So without further ado, we'll start the seminar now, and I'm going to give Chloe a nice little segue into this by talking about where she and I first met, which was 10 years ago, doing the 46-kilometer Manhattan Island Marathon swim, which one of the nice interesting things about that is that it's a marathon swim that is an actual race. And there aren't many races of 46 kilometers around the world. There is a couple of them, but there aren't many that are that long. And that's a pretty cool race. And you have to be of a certain speed to be able to make it, not just because of cutoffs, but because of the currents and the tides change for that particular race. It's quite a technical race. So you have to be pretty fast there. And at one point, I used to be a pretty decent swimmer. And I forget, I think I came like 14th or something in the race. And my story was we met Chloe before the race, and I didn't know who she was. And frankly, she wasn't anybody special at the time anyway. Like, we were all just, in 2010, we were all just good swimmers, and that was about it. And nobody knew anyone. And I happened to hit it off well with Chloe, and we had fun. And then of course, as the day goes on, you don't know where anybody is in the race or anything like that. And you're coming in 5 kilometers left, 3 kilometers left, 1 kilometer left. And the point that you've been waiting for the whole bloody day, you're 100 meters left. And I look to the left of me, and there's a cliff and a railing along the top. And I look up there as I'm breathing, and there's Chloe, all changed, dried off, everything, waving and cheering me in. I'm going, oh, I guess she's done. Well, Chloe won that race, male or female, won it outright. And that was, I don't know if I would say that your first big win, but it was certainly among your first big accomplishments, and kind of set you on the path to where you are now. So there's my first little anecdote, and I'll pass it off to you with that, Chloe.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for the intro, Rob. I just had a trip down memory lane. I guess you did too. So many fun memories. Yeah, and you're right. That was my first big international race. It very new to marathon swimming then. I'd actually just come from a double crossing of the English Channel 6 weeks earlier. So I had done some things in marathon swimming, but it was my first international race, and I had a big learning curve during that race. For those of you that keep up with the marathon swimming major events, New York City is now run by a group called 20 Bridges. Well, that's the event name. It's run by New York Open Water Swim, and they run multiple swims usually every year, you know, before COVID kind of hit the world. So it's now an event that's run more than once a year, but back when Rob and I did it, it was a once a year kind of, the fastest international swimmers get in, you race it, and you just see how you go around the 46-kilometer course. And the last 18 kilometers, you go down the Hudson. Now, I don't know if anyone's done a trip around New York. Pop in the chat box why, if you've been on the ferry that goes a circumnavigation of New York City, because it's an amazing ferry trip to do. So we were swimming around this amazing city. We were going with the tidal flows. There's 6 different rivers that converge, and they time it around to make sure that we get a really good chance to do it in a fast time. But there's a challenge for the back end of the field. If they're not fast enough, then what happens is basically they hit the Hudson and they cannot finish the race. So the Hudson part of the race, the last 18 kilometers, is super important to position yourself well. Otherwise, you may not be able to finish the swim. And I have this memory from that swim, which I will never forget. The last 18 kilometers, there was a Spaniard and myself, and we were like neck and neck. And 18 kilometers sounds like a long way, but it was like we were getting pushed by the tide really fast. So we were going at an amazing rate. And it was like me and him. It was like this cat and mouse thing going on. He'd creep in front, then I'd creep in front. And it's quite strategic what was back then when it was a race. It's quite a strategic race back then. So I had 2 kayakers and a boat. Well, 1 kayaker and 1 helper. And then he had his own kayaker and a boat. And what my team decided, and they didn't communicate with me because I was too busy swimming my little heart out, they said, why don't we pull the boat back as if Chloe's slowed down? So the boat's going to go a little bit slower now rather than being next to Chloe. And we'll just let one of the 2 kayakers go ahead quietly with Chloe. And maybe the other team will think that Chloe is still near the boat, and they'll kind of turn off the gas a little bit on the swimmer's pace because they'll think she's next to the boat, because the boat can block the vision of the swimmer sometimes, depending on where you're looking at the swimmer from. And it worked. So I actually don't remember the Spanish guy's name. It was quite a few years ago now. So we pulled the boat back, not we, my team pulled the boat back. I went off with the kayak at my pace. He thought I was next to the boat, so he dropped off his pace a little bit, and then I got this like 400-meter lead, and then he was just plowing to catch me to the end when he realized I'd actually got away from my boat. And they were like, he was sprinting. This guy's like 2 meters tall, his shoulders are nearly 2 meters wide, and he was like hunting me down. And then he kept looking forward, which was slowing him down a tiny bit, because if you know with swimming with body position, if you look forward, you get a lot of resistance in your front section, and it's really bad for swimming. And he kept looking forward, whereas I was just trusting my kayaker. I had my head down. My kayaker's like, don't look forward, don't look at the swimmer, just turn and breathe, look at me, and then just swim. So I didn't know where the finish line was, just looked at my kayaker. Anyway, I ended up winning the race by 5 seconds, and it was like an 8-hour race. So at the end, I was like, oh my God, thank God I got it. And yeah, the Spanish guy was really upset. He wouldn't talk to me at the end of the race. And yeah, that was really fun. So a few years later, he actually reached out and apologized. He's like, I'm sorry about that. So yeah, now we chat occasionally. But as I said, can't remember his name. Lovely man. Yes, that was many years ago now, Rob. It's 2021. That was 11 years ago. I've done a few things since then. Been around the block, been around the channel a few times. Yeah. So I'm really excited to be here and to share some stories and some tips with everyone. So what did you want to cover off first, Rob?
Well, I think as we were saying there, if you wanted to, I think a good segue would be if you can tell us of some of your adventures, which maybe they have a moral to the story of why you like open water swimming, and you know the things that have worked well for you and by example, and the things that haven't worked well for you by example, and by anecdote, and some of the fun, great races and fun, great swims. And this is one that other people probably have thought of too, and that I've thought of, is, so you've swum the English Channel 37 times now, and do they all blend together? And is there something in there that stand out for you that you would like to tell us about? Give us a few anecdotes. There's got to be a few out of 37. There's got to be half a dozen on each crossing. But tell us a few things about, tell us some stories here, some fireside stories about all that. And then we'll get into mistakes and things and ways for people to improve by avoiding problems.
Yeah, okay, cool. I love stories. So yeah, the English Channel, it does, as you said, it kind of blends into one channel swim, but yet you might have heard, some of you on this call may have heard that every day in the English Channel is different, which means that if I swum it 37 times, I've swum it on pretty much 37 different days. And that is actually really true. It sounds a bit corny, but every day is different. So in the last 3 years or so, I'm still getting new experiences in the English Channel that I've never had before. And it's extremely novel to get something new. Like, I get super excited when something new's happened, because when you're out there for so many hours, something new to happen, also to break up the monotony, is really great. So small things make me super excited. Like, I saw my first shark 2 years ago, and most people would like freak out seeing a shark in the channel. I was like, oh my God, everyone, this is so cool. I just saw a shark. But don't freak out if you are interested in swimming the English Channel. The shark's actually a dogfish. So it just looks like a little eel. It was only about like this wide, and it was very like slithery. I'm sure it had no teeth, and it was not even. So yeah, really cool. I'll just mute everyone. I just hope that doesn't mute Rob. If it does mute you, Rob, then you can press unmute. So yeah, I saw my first dogfish a few years ago, and then I saw it again, which was great. Something new that happened to me this year in the English Channel, which is cool. I was swimming along and I was getting smacked in the face, and I was like, what the hell is going on? But there were like some trevally fish or something. And so I was going to breathe and they were smacking me in the face, and then I could just smell this kind of like fishy residue as I was swimming along, which is a bit gross, but when it's something new and novel after swimming, like, it takes me about 34,000 arm strokes to swim the English Channel. So there's a lot of thinking time, a lot of downtime. In fact, a lot of people ask me, what do you think about when you swim the English Channel? So I can cover that if you want. So there's a lot of downtime. So I was quite happy to be hit by fish. Some other cool things, I got out of the channel once and there was a seahorse stuck in my bathers, and I was actually kind of sad because it must have died. And it was a baby one. It was only like this big, and I was like, what the hell is that thing coming out of me? In the English Channel, nothing super crazy has happened to me. It's a very controlled swim in many ways. So the weather is completely out of your control. It's whatever you get. And there's multiple weather systems that actually converge in the small area of the English Channel. And because it's squeezed between two large land masses, England and continental Europe, the tides are very strong. So the weather patterns interacting with these really strong tides means the conditions can change fast. The waves can go from very little small chop to huge waves. So as far as the conditions of the channel, it's very changeable, quite unpredictable still, even with 21st century meteorology and technology and things like that. But in terms of the way the English Channel swims are run themselves, that's very straightforward, or at least in the ones that I'm involved in. So the system with the pilots, meeting together, where we meet, what sort of time we meet, the process for starting the swim, the rules, how we get through the channel lanes, that's all very routine, which for me is actually quite comforting, because it's something I've now done so many times. I'm just so familiar with it. Like the day before a channel swim, I'm like, you know, it's pretty much a normal day for me. Like, I'm not nervous I'm swimming in this channel. You know, there's not really any anxiety. I'm just kind of super chilled, super relaxed. And sometimes I meet people, they're like, aren't you swimming the channel tomorrow? And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, just swimming off to France tomorrow. And it's not that I don't respect the English Channel, how difficult it is. And I'm not saying it's easy, because it's not. But it's just that I've swum it so many times, and my preparation is such a good routine, and I've done it so many times, and I'm confident in my preparation, and I'm confident that I know what I'm going to get in the English Channel, and that I can handle anything the channel throws at me, that I go in and I'm very relaxed. So if some of you follow me on social media, you'll know that like before a channel swim, I'm smiling, I've got my little koala teddy, or I'm playing with my numbers because I'm trying to get my numbers up to 44. So the world record for most English Channel swims, it's held by a lady, Alison Streeter, first woman to swim a triple non-stop crossing of the English Channel, which is absolutely incredible. She's retired now. So she finished her career at 43 channel swims, so I'm working up to 44. So I've been doing this little number system. So I just have some fun. Like English Channel swimming for me these days is all about fun. Whereas many years ago, I was like, I want to do double crossings, and I want to do triple crossings, and I want to do quadruple crossings. And I used to put so much pressure on myself. And that wasn't other people pressuring me to do certain things. It was my goals that I was working really hard towards, and I had wonderful support. So if you are wondering if other people, pressure me, sponsors or partners or people in my life, you can rest assured I am the craziest person still that I know. So yeah, English Channel swimming for me is quite fun. And if you're probably thinking, how the hell can you go into an English Channel swim and be super relaxed, super confident, and just know deep inside you that unless there's a bizarre weather event, a bizarre boat issue that stops the swim, I know I'm going to get to France. Like if you see me before the swims, like it's not a question of whether I'm going to make it. It's just a question of, well, what will happen today with the conditions and what time will I do? In fact, I have bets with my pilots about what time it's going to be, because they want to get back to the pub that particular day. So we start early in the morning. We start usually between 12 and 3 or 12 and 5 in the morning, and they want to make sure they're back, ideally back at the boat, because there's time for the boat to get back from France. It actually has to cross the channel again to take everyone back to England where we start, and they want to get to the pub before 5 o'clock. So we have bets, and I'm usually only about 10 to 20 minutes out from the start of the swim, what I'm guessing I'm going to do for that swim. So I make it a bit of a game, make it a bit of fun. But I don't want to talk about me constantly. So where this might relate to your own swimming journeys, if you are interested in longer swims or even 5 or 10 kilometer swims, I think the most, relevancy from my story that may be relevant to you is that if you practice something a lot and practice something in different conditions, particularly open water swimming, you will learn so much about yourself. You'll learn about how you react to certain conditions, how your body reacts to the cold water, cold air temperature, how your body responds to swims of 1 kilometer, swims of 5 kilometers, swims of 10 kilometers. If you are training up for longer swims of, say, 10 kilometers or more, I suggest that you practice your nutrition. So nutrition, what I mean by that is during your 10 kilometer longer swims, what are you going to have during that event to help you to get the energy and the hydration to get the best performance for you, or at least to feel good, like you've got energy. So the more swims you do of the distance that you're interested in, and even shorter ones to practice swimming at a bit of a faster pace, or longer ones just to remind yourself that you have that fitness and that you have the ability to make the longer distances if your main distance is a 5 kilometer. I do a couple 10 kilometers if you want to do a really good 5 kilometer swim, because if you know in the back of your head that you can do a 10 kilometer swim, you can take that confidence in, you can take that dress rehearsal in, and then go and do a big 5K. If you're working up to a special 5K event, maybe it's the championships for your area or the national championships, you can go in with the confidence that you've got the fitness to go that far and that you've practiced it. So the more that you practice your open water swimming, whether it's in training, entering events and doing it, the more confident you'll be, the more you can test out your equipment, test out how your body reacts, test out your feeding plan. If you're doing marathon swims that involve a support team like kayakers and boats, the more you can test that, then the more you can refine all your processes and gain confidence, because you've done this before, you've been there, you know what the certain conditions are like. So the more you enter events, the more exposure you get with different water conditions. So some days are choppy, some days are flat, Some days you've got the sun shining in your eyes and you've got to try to work through that. Some days it's foggy and you can't see. Some days you may not be feeling well, and you can practice what's going on with your nutrition if you're not feeling well. So I guess the main thing I share with you is just to get out there and swim in all sorts of conditions, try different length events, and really test everything. Test your equipment, test your processes, test your nutrition, test different courses, swim in different conditions. So like a lake swim, an ocean swim, and you can even, if you want, you can do longer swims in the pool. There might be 1, 2, or 5 kilometer races that you can enter, and that can help check your pacing. If you want to know what pace you're going to do for a 5 or 10K open water swim, if you do that in the pool first, you can go, okay, well, I'm about 2 minutes a kilometer pace. I can hold that. I can practice holding that in the pool. Now let's see if I can convert that to the open water. So yeah, the more you can get out there and just try different things, the more you can prepare for your events and feel really confident when you go into them and have as much fun as you can, because you're not going to have a lot of fun if you're super stressed, you're anxious, or things start happening in your swim and you feel like everything's out of your control and you don't know what to do. All right, you might need to, you're unmuted, Rob.
Yep. So with that in mind, maybe we should move on to the second part of this, talking more about common mistakes, or again, based on your experience, what mistakes or problems or issues that you've come across. The one that leaps to mind for me that I'm glad you haven't touched on yet is cold water conditioning. And being an Aussie, that's always an issue for all the Aussies that want to come and swim the English Channel, because it's hard to find cold water there. And a lot of the Aussies there think that 16 or 17 is cold water, and it's not. being Canadian, that's not cold. So why don't we go down that road there of what do you see as common things that you can essentially pass on to people that they can skip ahead just because they heard this from you?
Yeah, sure. All right, so I'm just going to give generalized ideas because I don't know where each of you is at with your training or your goals. But let's just say you did want to swim a long marathon swim. If you did want to swim the English Channel, my suggestion is to do a longer swim first. Like you could even sign up for a relay of the English Channel and you'll get so much experience there. But moving on to common mistakes. So some people that come from different countries in the world don't get the cold water training in. And so they say to themselves, oh, well, I live in India, or I live in a warm part of Australia, or, you know, I live in a warm area in Africa. I can't train that much because I have to catch an airplane or I have to drive 5 hours to get to cold water. And what I would say is that the English Channel doesn't discriminate. Like when you get there and you're on those big, thick, horrible pebbles at the start of your swim in Samphire Ho, where it starts, the Channel doesn't care if someone died in your family and you couldn't train for a few weeks, or if you live in the desert, like in Texas, and you can't access cold water easily. So don't think that just because things happen to you that you're going to get any kind of reprieve or special consideration by the English Channel. It's going to be a really hard day, no matter what day you swim it. So it's up to you. If you're struggling to find cold water, you need to proactively think about how can I work around this. So a lot of English Channel swimmers are quite successful people generally, especially in their professional life, and a portion of them travel with work. So when I've had swimmers on my program, especially at the executive level, which is fairly common, they're often traveling with work. So what we do is we plan out their calendar, like literally 3-4 months in advance, because these people are generally highly scheduled. And I'm like, okay, what city are you going to be in? And we're looking at what cold water options there are, what pool options there are. The worst thing to do if you're traveling around, say with work, which I'm sure some of you would be, and you're trying to maintain your training, is get to a city and go, okay, well now where do I swim? You need to plan these things well in advance. So, you know, if you're going to a new city, link in with those open water swim groups before you go to that city, like a few weeks beforehand. For example, if I was traveling to Boston and I wanted to get cold water swimming in, then I would reach out and find open water swimming groups online. And I know there is one in Boston. And then you find people that may want to swim with you when you're going to be there, when you're available. So you've got a buddy system, so that's safe because you're not swimming by yourself. You should never swim by yourself in the open water. And they're also going to tell you, what the water temperature is like. They're going to tell you where the safest spots are to swim. You'll reach out in advance. They're going to know when they're available and you can organize that, and then have this great social element too. They're going to know where the local pools are. They're going to know the opening times of the pools because there could be restrictions, especially in COVID, things like this. So with cold water swimming, you need to do a lot of it. And it's hard to say how much unless I know exactly what your background is of access to cold water and how much history you have of cold water swimming in the past. But preparation is absolutely key. And don't think just because you live a long way from the cold water that you can kind of get away with doing minimal cold water training. You need to do a lot. And so just kind of as a general idea, my marathon swimmers that I've had in my program, and I've coached 25 people to swim it solo, I say to them, you need to do 4 6-hour swims before you swim the English Channel. Now, ideally, you work up to your first 6-hour swim, and that is the year before your Channel swim. So let's just say you're swimming the Channel in mid-July 2023. So I'd say first 6-hour swim, no pressure, you don't have to do it up until the end of the year before. So sometime in the back end of 2022, let's do your first 6-hour swim. I don't want them to do it too far in advance because people can sometimes overtrain for the English Channel. That's a real thing. And I don't want them to feel the pressure that they need to do a 6-hour swim a year in advance or a year and a half in advance of their Channel swim. So we're building their momentum, we're building their mileage. So that mileage is like volume, so total volume per week. So do volume in the pool, and we're building their mileage in the open water, including their time in the cold water. They do the first 6-hour swim the back end of the year before their Channel swim. Now the year of their Channel swim, I say, look, I want you to do 3 6-hour swims. And of that 3, 2 should be back to back. So most people work Monday to Friday as a general rule. And so what we'll do in Australia, and I've run swim camps actually all over the world, but in Australia is where I run most of it. So we run these swim camps, and then we find a time of the year where the water temperature is 15.5 Celsius, so that's 60 Fahrenheit, and we run the camps those weekends. We run a 6-hour swim on one day and a 6-hour swim on the next day, and we get everyone in doing it at the same time, which means that it's an efficient use of water safety time. So if you know other people who want to swim long marathon swims in the cold and you want to swim a long marathon swim, which is a cold swim, get together and use support crew, use kayakers, use volunteers efficiently. Like if there's 3 or 4 or 5 of you planning to swim the Channel in 1 year or in the next few years, get together, organize your schedules, and then you can use your support system more efficiently, and you'll have a great time swimming with your buddies, getting through your 6-hour swim together. You can celebrate at the end, go out for lunch and dinner, and make it a great affair. So you don't feel, a lot of marathon swimmers who don't know other people who swim the Channel get quite lonely doing all these hours by yourself. So networking with others, really organizing in advance your swims can really help keep your motivation up, your momentum, and you can learn from your other buddies in your group as well. Because if they find some new cool tool or new way of doing something, or they found a way to stop water getting in their goggles or something, they can share that information with you. You can share that information with them. So that's a really good thing as well. So to cap off again, so if you're doing cold water marathon swim, like English Channel, but also if you're doing the swim around New York City, you know, the 20 bridges, that's a cold water swim. So 4 6-hour swims before a Channel swim, and make sure 2 of them are on back-to-back days in the year of your Channel swim, ideally within 3 months of your Channel swim, and if you can, within 2 months of your Channel swim. But it really depends on when the water is cold nearest to you. So the Northern Hemisphere has different climates than the Southern Hemisphere where I live in Australia. So our 6-hour swims might be at slightly different times of the year. But just to let you know, Rob, Australia is a huge continent, not as big as America, but huge. So there are areas in Australia which are quite cold. For those of you that know Australia or may have travelled, you know that Tasmania is quite cold. It's kind of like England all year round. And Adelaide's quite cold, and Melbourne, where I used to live, can be quite cold. I mean, it doesn't snow, but there are definitely cold spots in Australia.
Okay, point well taken. Tell me what you think about And I think the old school was that to do cold water conditioning, you had to, and this is something for everyone out there, because I'm sure a lot of people have this kind of in the back of their mind. You had to get fat and you had to put on weight. And then kind of the more newer school is, well, no, not necessarily no, but because that does help, I think. You can tell me what you think, but just do more cold water training and you can actually change your conditioning ability to accommodate for colder water. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic. And again, literally everybody is a bit different. Many years ago, if you look up English Channel swimmers about 20 years ago, the great names of the sport, and they're still great names, like the Kevin Murphy, he's got the men's world record for channel swims. Alison Streeter has overall world record for greatest channel swims. They were swimming at large body weights, overweight, possibly obese, depending on how you define that, things like that, like really large body weight. And that was a general trend that was going on at that time. And some people now do swim the channel at quite a large body weight. But then there are also people like me who are a little bit slimmer. I used to be a bit larger swimming the channel. So right now I'm about 72 kilograms. When I swam the my first double crossing in 2010, before I did that men's swim, I was 82 kilograms. So I had 10 kilograms of fat on me. And I used to be a triathlete before that. So I went from 61 kilos and then 12 months later I was 82 kilos. And that only a tiny bit was muscle. So the rest was just pure fat. It definitely helps to have a bit of body weight on you to get across the English Channel. So at that point, I was training to be in the water up to 25 hours. So I wanted to have a bit of body weight. Whereas now I'm swimming the channel and I know bang on, I'll swim the channel between 10 hours and 10 hours 20 as an average. So I don't need to be in the channel 20 hours. I don't need the weight, the body weight. And I do mean fat. I don't mean muscle weight here. I don't need extra fat because I'm not doing double crossings anymore. What that means, I guess, for the average person is you've got to think about, well, what do you need to get across the English Channel? And this is so interesting because it's in a way, it seems like polar opposites. So you've got quite thin people who can successfully get across the channel and then quite large people who can also successfully get across the channel. So you probably think, well, what's best for you? So as a blanket rule, everyone needs to do cold water swimming. Whether you're thin, whether you've got some generous body weight on you, you need to get in and do cold water swimming. So your body needs a chance to physically acclimate, to acclimatize to what it's like to swim in cold water, because it's completely unnatural. And by cold water, I mean for the channel, you're looking at, say, 12 to 16 degree water Celsius that you're training in. So when you train in that water temperature, your body goes, okay, well, this organism, because you're a living organism, this organism needs some support to function, because your brain, your hindbrain, which is like your evolutionary brain, all it wants to do is to keep you alive. Like, it has one job, that part of your brain is keep that organism alive. And it's going, okay, what does this organism need to stay alive? Okay, it needs to function in cold water. Okay, let's make some changes and help this body to function. And so what will happen is, as you do your cold water swimming, you'll convert some of your white fat cells to brown fat cells. But what does that mean for you? Because, you know, in reality, it means your body's actually adapting to function in cold water. So it reduces the chance that you're going to get hypothermia. It delays the onset of hypothermia because your body's actually functioning better and better in cold water. So the more hours you do in cold water, the more brown fat cells that you can create. And so that's a really, really good thing. So thin people are creating these brown fat cells and getting across the English Channel. Larger people also are creating these brown fat cells and getting across the English Channel. So this is how some people that look super thin can handle the cold and get across the English Channel, is because their body's actually physiologically adapting to it. Also, strong and fit swimmers do much better as lean swimmers. So people like myself who are, I'm going to say, fast. I mean, I'm not the fastest person to swim the English Channel, but I'm usually in the top 1% each year. or sometimes I am the fastest. So fast people, their bodies work very efficiently because they're fit. Like our hearts are strong, our lungs are strong, our cardiovascular system is very efficient. Now, a little bit of cold water is a stressful event for your body. But if you've got a very fit individual, fit people can handle stress well because of the way that their body is functioning at a very optimal level. So if you've got a thin person who's done lots of cold water swimming, but they swim very slow, they don't have a lot of fitness, then they may struggle to handle the cold water. So if you're a lean type of body and you're not particularly a strong or fast swimmer, I would say definitely put some weight on. If you're a fast swimmer and you reckon you can do the channel in 10 or 11 hours or 12 hours, then you probably don't need to put a lot of fat on, but you still need to do heaps of cold water training to get your body conditioned to swimming in the English Channel. Remember that it's completely unnatural, A, to swim at all. Humans aren't designed to swim. B, to put your body in cold water, survive, A, and then also to perform well, which is to swim however long you want to swim, right? But I keep going back to the English Channel because it's where I had the most experience coaching in as a swimmer. But to swim 34 kilometers in often treacherous conditions with huge tides, big waves, all sorts of things going on, like you're weaving through shipping lanes, things like that. So yes, some lean people can get across the channel, but they're usually very fit, they're very fast, and those sorts of swimmers often are very experienced at open water swimming. They've been doing a lot of races for years, and a lot of them will have competitive swimming backgrounds as juniors. So as teenagers, they grew up racing, they've kind of got some experience behind them, but they've got good technique. Yeah, but as a general rule, I would say if you've got a very lean body weight, I'd put on a little bit of weight. And I don't know the exact BMI for you to be, but I just say to people, like my swimmers, I'm like, you should have some fat to grab. Like you should be able to grab your hand on your stomach and have a whole fat roll in your hand. And if you can do that, that's a really good start. If you've got less than that, then you better be bloody fit and bloody fast because it can be quite cold out there. And it's not just the cold water, it's the cold air temperature. People don't realize generally air temperature is a big thing. Yes, water temperature is going to make you feel cold, but in the middle of summer, which is, let's say, late June, early July, that's technically the middle of the English summer. The air temperature is usually really good, like it's warm during the day. But when you're getting late in the summer or early autumn, I don't know if you're following me, but I was swimming in October and it was fucking horrible. Like that was autumn, it's like huge gale force winds, not when I was swimming, but there was still windy when I was swimming. The air temperature was really low. The daylight hours are really short, which means that there was hardly any sun touching my skin. And all that adds up to potentially triggering hypothermia. So it's not just water temperature, it's how many daylight hours you have, what's the air temperature as well, is there any wind? Because if there's any wind, it's going to take heat away from your skin. Like it just blows any warmth you have straight off your skin. So yeah, you're training for the water temperature, but you're also training for the season that you're swimming in the English Channel. Is it the middle of summer or is it late summer, early autumn? Because it does make a big difference.
Chloe, one other point there that goes back to your cold water training, and again, I have my opinion on this, but I'd rather hear it from you, is what do you think of, like you said, for your executives or your people that can't get close to cold water, just ice baths?
Well, ice baths definitely work for people. I don't like them and I don't need to, so I don't do them. But I had a swimmer, Chloe McCardel, who swam the English Channel solo on my program last year, and he swam the channel in just under 11 hours, and he'd never done a marathon swim over 15 kilometers. In training he'd done 6-hour swims, but never done a race over 15 kilometers before. So Callum lives in Singapore. Okay? He lives on the equator, and he didn't move for his channel swim, but being an executive, he was traveling, and his wife's Australian, his kids are half Australian. So he would come and work his work trips around when the swim camps were that I ran in Australia. Like he just figured things out. He made things happen. And here's a big communication thing I just want to pop in, is that when people are thinking of joining the channel with me, I send them a form and I ask them, is your partner supportive of your goal? Are the people in your life, including work, are they supportive of your goal? Because if you can get your partner on board and you can get your workplace on board, they will literally support you and they will make work trips more flexible for you so that you can go and find out cold water. So if you get people on board, you're excited about your journey early on, make them feel like they're a part of your journey, like really engage them, you'll get them excited and they'll give you more leave passes to go do your cold water swim or go do the travel, the training that you need to do. And so back to your point, yeah, Callum lived in Singapore. He only traveled briefly for camps in Australia when we did 6-hour swims. The rest completely was ice baths in a bucket. In Singapore, and he's a big rugby fan, so he'd have an ice bucket outside, like an actual bath that he would fill up with ice, and he would watch the rugby on the TV, and his kids would hang out with him on the deck, and he did it. He did have a warm day, though, in the English Channel. Occasionally there's warm days where the air temp was ridiculously hot when he swam.
But I think the point is, ideally, you know, if you lived in Dover, you just go swim in the English Channel every day to train. But if that isn't where you are and that isn't your best case scenario, and even if you can't go and do long cold water swims, just being exposed and doing nothing in cold water will, like as you say, help you acclimatize to the cold water. So there is ways around it and everything. With that in mind, let's just because I don't want to pigeonhole you as only English Channel, and maybe not everybody here is entirely focused on the English Channel. You happen to have some warm water experience too. Your swim for 128 kilometers in the Bahamas is exactly the opposite. And a whole plethora of other challenges and problems and everything. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this swim I did in 2014, the world record for longest non-stop swim. I'm really proud of that. I went through a lot of pain to achieve that swim. It was officially ratified at 124 kilometers, but we originally planned it to be 128, so that's probably how you've read some info about that on the internet. It was a warm water swim, so the water temperature was 27 Celsius. The air temperature was also 27 Celsius during the day, and at night it only dropped by about 2 Celsius. So it was warm during the day, warm during the night. The reason why I sought out that particular type of swim was because I wanted the world record for longest non-stop swim, and I knew from by then, years of swimming the English Channel, there is no way I would be successful if I tried to get the world record in a cold water swim. So what happens to your body, for those of you that aren't familiar with this yet, and you know a lot of you would be, is that when you swim in cold water, if you just stay swimming in cold water, eventually at some point you will die. Like, you either have to finish your swim or pull out of a swim, which is a cold water swim. You can't just indefinitely swim in cold water. Like, Sarah Thomas has done an amazing job, the first and only person to have ever done a 4-way crossing of the English Channel. Like, good on it, amazing, right? Incredible. If you don't know her, look her up, like, amazing. Okay, but even her, right, eventually she'll get hypothermia. So it comes to a point where with cold water swimming, everyone has a point where they can no longer function. They can no longer keep swimming. As an organism, they can no longer stay alive in cold water. Now, for me, at the moment, I can't do a quadruple crossing of the English Channel. And it's not that I can't, like, train up for it. It's just that my body is not handling the cold very well and it's going into a hypothermic state. So I knew that if I wanted to get this world record, cold water swimming was not going to be the way to do it, because I'd go into hypothermia and, you know, I had to pull out of the swim before I could finish it. I couldn't get 124 kilometers in cold water. So I found somewhere in the world that was warm water, but I had to be really careful because I didn't want to get stung by jellyfish, which I had the year before when I tried to swim between Cuba and the USA. So this is why I went this big warm water swim. I don't want to go into too much detail because I mean, it may not be relevant. I don't know what exactly the people listening looking for in this particular swim. I just like to say that in a warm water swim, you've got to be really careful about the water temperature because you can particularly overheat. So you've got the opposite issue of a cold water swim. So I slowed my swimming down. Now for me, slowing my swimming down, which I did in that world record swim in the Bahamas, I slowed myself down to 3 kilometers an hour on average. Now, it may not sound slow, but for me, I can cross the channel at about 4 kilometer an hour pace. So I dropped my pace by about 25%. So some of that was to save energy because it was a long swim, but some of that was that I didn't want to overheat because at water temperature 27 degrees, that's actually quite warm. Your body temperature is 36 degrees, and yes, it's below 36 degrees, but because when you exercise, you create heat, I'm swimming enough to maintain my core temperature without any warm drinks. So in cold water swimming, I haven't covered it yet, but one way to help your body to handle cold water swimming is to take warm drinks. So you do that in training. You also do that in the English Channel. So you take very warm drinks, but not hot because you don't want to burn your tongue, etc., etc. So I didn't need any cold water drinks during that warm water swim. It was 27 Celsius, but I also knew not to swim too fast. Even though it was a long swim, I had to really even myself out. So if you're doing a 2 kilometer swim, 5 kilometer swim, 10 kilometer swim, and the water temperature is quite warm, like 27 or 30 degrees, just be aware there is a chance, I'm not saying it's likely, but there's a chance you can overheat, go into hyperthermia. Hyper, so that's Hyper, hypothermia. That's also a deadly, potentially deadly condition. So there's an elite marathon swimmer, Rob, you probably heard of him, some else of you may have, Fran Crippen, who died from hypothermia in a FINA race. So FINA is the International Authority for Competitive Swimming, pool, water polo, synchronized swimming, open water swimming, blah, 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 for races. So he died during one of those events from hypothermia, from overheating. So there is some contention that maybe the swim should have been stopped or should never have started at all. This is quite a few years ago. I don't remember exactly the year. You might be able to remember, Rob. And he overheated and died during a swim. Now, I don't think he was wearing a wetsuit, but for anyone who wears wetsuits and it is a warm water swim, you've just got to keep in mind that if you're in a wetsuit, you're going to be even warmer than people who aren't in a wetsuit. So when you're doing a warm water swim, just keep in mind, what is the water temperature? Am I wearing a wetsuit or not? Do I think there's a potential that I'm going to overheat? Because there is that small chance. And then also think about hydration. So hydrating the day before your event. Hydrating the day before a swim, whether it's a channel or a 5 kilometer swim, is an amazing way to start your event completely hydrated. So I'm a big fan of hydrating the day before your event starts. So hypothermia, when you're overheating, you definitely want to hydrate. So if you can get your hydration in the day before start at a really good balance, that's great. And then hydrating if you can during your swim, if it's a longer swim, so 5 kilometers plus, get your hydration in. So not just pure water, but water with electrolytes. So electrolytes help your body to absorb the water and really take it in. If you're drinking plain water, it takes many hours for your body to actually properly rehydrate. So those sports drinks that have electrolytes in them, whether it's pre-mixed like a Gatorade or a Powerade or a Lucozade, or it's something you mix yourself with a powder or goo kind of sort of gel, or you get a team around you to organize that for you if you've got the support of a team, that's really good for hydration during those hot water swims.
Yeah, that's right. I remember the whole Fran Crippen episode in, I think it was 2006, and it was in, I believe it was in Dubai, at the peak of summer in Dubai. And it was, you know, how people are all afraid of cold water swimming. And unfortunately, Fran proved that there's dangers of hot water swimming too. And yeah, there are issues there too. So just something to be aware of for people. Okay, this is probably a good time to take another change in course here and get on to our third and final segment. You can talk to us about, well, I think kind of 3 things, mostly about your actual training program, and tell us, you know, what it's all about. And then the other 2 things that I think are you wanted to mention was the dryland episodes and the Ocean 7 swims. And then at the end of that, we'll take a few questions. And I think Dylan's been compiling a few there. So why don't we move into that?
Cool. As a segue, I want to tell you a little story about my world record swim, because I haven't really put it down on paper or anywhere. So this Bahamas swim, there was just so much going on. We had a weather window. For those of you that don't know what a weather window is, it's a range of dates where your swim may happen, because in open water swimming, unlike pool swimming, you don't know what day in advance is going to be the right day to swim, because you're dealing with weather patterns. A lot of things are changeable. So that world record swim in 2014, we actually started the day before the weather window was supposed to happen. So we weren't really organized. Our team weren't all in the Bahamas yet on the particular island that we're starting from. It was absolutely chaos. We started the swim with one boat, even though technically I'd hired 2 boats. So the swim started, it was not as organized as it should be, which is not a good way to run a marathon swim, because once you start a marathon swim, it's a long one, you're out in the middle of nowhere. So you can't just easily refuel or go to the service station and pick something up if you don't have it. Anyway, so I was swimming along, and during the day, what I've learned from that swim, which may be of value to some of you with these warm water swims, is that my sunscreen was not good enough. So I didn't have strong zinc. So you see swimmers these days, they often have this very white sort of paste or white sunscreen they're wearing, and that's like pure zinc. And that stuff is super strong. So if you are swimming when there's a lot of sun, it would be good to use that. I didn't use it at the time. I didn't realize that I should be using it. So I was learning things, even 5 years into marathon swim. Anyway, so I was getting burned by the sun. So I was in pain at the end of the first day from burns of the sun. And then that night I got stung by jellyfish. I was like, it was like an iron like pressing on my skin, the burns from jellyfish. I was like screaming, and then I kept swimming. But I thought, well, at least the sun's gone away, because the sun was burning me. So what would happen on the first night is that from being burnt by the sun during the day all over my body, and then also from the jellyfish stings, my blood pressure dropped. Now, I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know what was going on. But what happened was I actually got hypothermia in the middle of this world record swim. The water temperature was 27 Celsius. At night, the air temp was just under 27 Celsius, and I'm getting hypothermia. Someone who can, at that point, I'd already swum double crossings of the English Channel. So that's in water temperatures of 16 Celsius with air temperatures of about 15 to 18 Celsius. So you might be thinking, well, why would I be getting hypothermia in the middle of a long, warm swim? And it was because of these burns and the toxins from the jellyfish was dropping my blood pressure. Now, because my blood pressure was dropped, my body couldn't keep itself warm. Like, it just didn't have that capacity in the state that I was in. So then I said to my crew, I need warm water. And they're like, why? Why would you need warm water? Like, it's hot. And so we didn't have any kettles on board. There was no way for them to make warm water. So they were kind of like brainstorming, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And there was a medic on board who was specialized in outdoor paramedic work, for adventures and things like that. Anyway, I can't remember exactly what he did, but he managed to create warm water on the boat with some sort of contraption he made on the spot. He got like an empty can Coke. They put water in it. They heated this up, and he created hot water on the boat. So just keep in mind with if you're doing these long marathon swims, anything can happen. So prepare for every eventuality. Expect that everything that you don't expect is going to happen, so that if those things happen during your swim, then you're ready to go. So that's what I learned, I guess, from that swim. Wear zinc if you've got a lot of sun in your swim, and then also prepare for the unexpected. All right, so moving on to your questions. Some of you may...
Chloe, can I interrupt you for one second there? Not that anyone's asked this yet, but and maybe this isn't even the crowd for it, but people who aren't marathon swimmers, or people who are often marathon swimmers, often have the paranoia, and I would argue unjustly, but it's a tough thing to get around. And while we're down in the Bahamas right now, what's your thoughts on swimming with sharks?
Well, my thoughts are that the home of sharks is the sea. So that's where they're going to be. And if I'm going to swim the sea, then I'm swimming in their home, and they're kind enough to share it with me. Hopefully they don't see me as lunch or dinner, but if they do, then I'm not going to hold a grudge against them. My view is that sharks don't hunt humans. Sharks are very efficient predators for their prey, which is eating fish. If they hunted humans, then thousands or millions of us would die a year. So it's very rare for a shark to bite a human. It's an accident if it happens. But in saying that, I'm very careful where I swim. There are some places where I just don't swim. And then if I do, I will have some mitigation strategies. So in the Bahamas swim, and if you want to talk about this, I'm more than happy to go there. I actually had a team which their job role is to keep the sharks away, or so Chloe does not get eaten by sharks. Like that was I hired them to do that. So when I wanted to swim between Cuba and America, it was the 100-mile swim in 2013. I announced it on CNN TV. So that went out right across America. And someone reached out to me by email and they said, oh, I was on Diana Nyad's swim attempt last year. And, you know, if you want some support with the shark stuff, then let me know. I can help. A lovely man. And so I ended up hiring him to support me. And he's an what do you call those people that dive and kill sharks? I mean, not sharks, sorry, fish, spear diver. Yeah. So he's an ex-spear diver. So he worked out some strategies he'd learned from a marine biologist from Diana Nyad's team. And these are prevention strategies to keep sharks away, not to spear sharks, not to kill them, blah, 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 blah. But he'd learned strategies from someone who really knows sharks. And anyway, so his name's Andy. He did a brilliant job. So he'd also done some research. He'd found these things called shark bombs. And a shark bomb is a synthetic replication. So it's a chemical which is a complete replication of rotting shark flesh. So these shark bombs, that we had actual bombs, I mean the team, I was just a swimmer, right, in this swim in the Bahamas. We had these bombs ready to go that was just organic matter. It wasn't going to hurt the shark. But when put in the water, they were going to immediately release the smell of rotting shark. Now, on top of that, I had two kayakers next to me, so either side of me, the whole entire swim on rotation. So I had kayakers waiting to go on the mothership. And in the back of the kayak, they each had a shark shield. And they also, I'll talk about that next, they also had this rotting shark substance, which was getting released slowly throughout the entire swim. So we picked a time of year where sharks were less active, and that was a particular strategy. And then we also had this shark bomb literally slowly drip feeding into the water as I was swimming. And then we had the shark shields, which changed the electrical magnetic field, which basically made it really uncomfortable if a shark got really close. It doesn't work on all sharks, but it worked on sharks that we were concerned about for that particular swim. So at night time, no one had any visibility. We couldn't see if any sharks were in the water. And that's when I was most afraid, because I couldn't see behind me. No one could see behind me. No one could see underneath me. No one could see in front of me. If there was a shark there, and if they were super, super keen on eating me, then you know, the drip feeding of the shark substance, the electrical magnetic field, that was not going to keep them away if they were like hell bent on making me their lunch or dinner. But for any curious sharks, that it would have probably just deterred them from generally being in my area. So at night time, I was quite concerned that, you know, I may lose a limb. I didn't, clearly. But during the second day, when I was swimming along, two nurse sharks came up to other kayakers that were just ahead of me, and they went really close to their kayaks. They went close to the shark shield. So I think they were curious about the change in the electrical magnetic field, because they went really close to the shark shield. And then what happened is one went close, swam away, and one went even closer. And I think they touched the shark shield because they kind of jolted and then really fast swam away. So I definitely think the electrical shark shield has an effect on the sharks, but I also think that it attracted those particular nurse sharks, which makes me worried that they actually may attract some types of sharks. So for me, the jury's out on shark shields. hard to test whether the shark bombs and the shark system worked well, because I didn't see them. I don't know if they were going to be there anyway, or they were not going to be there anyway. But I felt quite safe, except at night time, because no one could see whether there were sharks or not, because they could pull me out at any time if they wanted. Like, if we were really concerned about my safety, one of the scenarios was to pull me out of the swim, like cancel the swim. And another scenario my shark team had is they had PVC tube piping, which is like plumbing piping. So it's hollow piping like this, it's just plastic, and they were about 1 meter long, so it's 3 feet. And if a shark was really close to me, but it didn't look like it was going to attack me, it was just quite curious, it wasn't going away, the shark team were going to get into the water and actually with their shark tube just like push the shark away, because sharks generally are quite curious creatures, but they want an easy meal. Like, they don't want to work hard for their meal. And so if they're getting pushed away, they're going to go, okay, that's not lunch. Like, that's not an easy prey. I'm out of here. So that was another strategy they had.
Okay, that's good. I just think, you know, especially for non-swimmers, that's the most common question you get, and yet it's probably one of the lowest risks of hypothermia, and everything is a lot, and poor nutrition and things like that are much more likely to end a marathon swim than that. But it's the topical one, and everybody that watches Shark Week wants to hear about sharks. So, okay, so why don't you get into a little bit more detail about your program?
Yeah, cool. So for those of you that are interested in swimming the English Channel, I do run English Channel coaching. So I do a group format, which is running at the moment for 6 months, which will open again soon. And then I also do one-on-one coaching, which I find is really popular with professionals that just want that extra level of support, and it's someone that's there around the clock over the entire year or over 2 years that want a lot of support, and they want to go straight to an expert that's swum it millions of times nearly, and they've coached literally hundreds of people to swim the English Channel. So there's a few different options there. If you are interested in swimming the channel, as I said before, if you can jump in a relay, if there's any way to do that, it's a great way to get used to the whole system of the English Channel. Some other exciting things I've got going on, some of you who follow me on social media will know that I've teamed up with a physiotherapist called Alice Bequee. So she's an athlete, she's a swimmer and a runner, and she has been supporting people during lockdown who are athletes that want to keep fit, strong and mobile. So we ran a session last night in Australian time, so it was very early your time in the morning if you're in Canada or America, and it was great. We had 70 plus people on there doing Pilates and dryland training from all across the world: Lebanon, Turkey, Mexico, Australia. We even had some people up at 3 a.m. in America, lots in England, Belgium, like all over Europe. Absolutely amazing. So that's really exciting, and that was free. So we're running that 2 more times. So if you want to come to some free Pilates dryland sessions. Now, these are designed specifically for swimmers. So they're not for runners, they're not for cyclists, they're not for generalized population, specifically for swimmers. Then what you can do is pop me a private message. So if you're on my social media, or if you want to, you probably have Dylan or Rob's email or info@GGS. You can send them an email and say, hey, I want to know when the next one's on. So that's really exciting. They're going to run 2 more of them. Let us know, or let me know if you want to jump along to that. I'll put you on the mailing list. Some other cool things I've got going on is that I'm soon going to be launching, this is absolutely brand new and I haven't talked about it at all yet, so I'm talking about it here for the very, very first time, so I'm very excited, is that I'm launching mentoring and coaching for Ocean Sevens. So Ocean Sevens are the biggest marathon swims around the world. So they include swims like the Catalina Channel, the English Channel, the Tsugaru Strait, the North Channel, Strait of Gibraltar, Kauai Channel in Hawaii. So 7 of the biggest marathon swims around the world. What swimmers often find is they don't know the particular swims because they're spread across the world. Some are warm water, some are cold water. What pilot should they pick? What time of year should they go? What tide should they pick? They have so many questions. So that's launching in a few weeks, and if anyone from this call, from when this call went live, if you guys want to join that, then I'm happy to offer you 50% off what I'm going to offer it generally. So on my website and that, I'm just going to advertise at one set rate. But there's going to be a little code which I'll give you right now. And if you are keen to join up, then I'll give you that special discount. So we can chat about that later if you want when I launch that officially. And if you do want to sign up, just put in the code or let me know. We'll just make the code GSS for Global Swim Series, because it's all themed. Good theme, right? And then I'll get 50% off. So if you're interested in doing any of those particular swims in the future, what I've done is I've got together with swimmers who have done some or all of the swims. I've got together with coaches who specialize in some or all those swims. I've also got together with pilots who specialize in these swims as well. And I'm kind of looking at a big 360-degree look at who knows these swims, who are doing well coaching swimmers, who are the swimmers that are doing really well gunning across these swims, and how can we get the most information and value out of these people, put it in one place. So it's an on-demand product. So you just click and play. It's a little video, and I'm just sharing all these insights from these swimmers and coaches, pilots. I've interviewed them, and they've packaged it all into exactly what you need to know for all these 7 swims. So super excited about that. Let me know in the future. Let me know discount if you want to join that. The code GSSS. Yeah, so that's pretty much all my little spiel of what I'm up to. If you want to follow me on social media, it's for Instagram, it's @ and then my name, Chloe McCardel. Yeah, if you want to follow, join in stuff that we're doing.
Okay. I think we have a time for a couple questions here. Dylan sent me a couple. And one thing that seems to be a common theme here, I'll reduce it a little bit because there's a lot of common questions here, but some people would like to know a little bit more about nutrition. What tips and tricks do you use for the channel? How many calories do you typically try to get in? And then even to reduce a little bit more for people that aren't swimming the channel, just if you're trying to do your first 10K, what do you think about all that?
Great questions, really practical questions. So let's go through them. So for swimming the English Channel, what I suggest to my swimmers is that you need to really plan out your nutrition well in advance, and then practice those nutrition strategies in your long swims. So in your 6-hour swims, or if you're doing 3-4-hour swims or longer swims, then practice that nutrition. So what would that look like in practice? So for example, I said to my swimmers, you'll need to be absorbing somewhere between 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrate an hour. Ideally, you want that to be liquid, not solid, because the body absorbs liquid carbohydrates much better than it absorbs solid carbohydrates. So that means that the energy is immediately available. So you want some sort of fast releasing energy, and then a little bit of slow releasing energy as well, because what you don't want during your 5-kilometer swim, 10-kilometer swim, or even longer, is for your energy levels to spike and then drop, because you're going to feel great when you have the feed. The feed's another word for having some hydration or food that has energy in it. But you don't want to be going up and down, up and down, up and down, because you feel good after the feed, but then your sugar levels will drop and then you'll feel flat for a while. So look at the nutrition, look at the brands out there, chat to your friends or hire a coach who knows what they're doing and say, look, what sort of nutrition do you use? What do you recommend? What works well? I want fast releasing carbohydrates. I want slow releasing carbohydrates. Then you want to practice with how many carbs you should be having now, somewhere between 60 and 90 grams. For example, people like myself who have very high work output, which means that we're swimming at a fast rate and we're putting a lot of energy into our swimming, we generally are going to want to have more carbohydrates per hour because we're burning through more carbohydrates per hour, and also our body can metabolize carbohydrates much better than someone who's less trained. So less trained people can get across the English Channel, right? And you'll know if you follow that, or even 10-kilometer swimmers, right? Like there's someone I think he's mentioned on here, they're 3 hours, 50 minutes for 10 kilometers. You know, that's totally cool, right? So it's just a slower pace swimmer. So you'd be having less carbohydrates per hour because your body's not metabolizing through them. Now, if you're a slower swimmer and you're having too many carbs per hour, what's going to happen is that you're going to get gastrointestinal, just feeling unwell. Like you'll feel like you have a bit of a stitch or a bit of a cramp, or you'll feel bloated, and you'll just not want to have feeds. And so if you're having those sort of issues, either your carbohydrates are too high for you, for whatever pace you swim at, or whatever brand you're using is not a brand that works for your particular digestive system. Now, there's not one brand where I can say you must use this brand. I use this brand, therefore you should use this brand. Just because something works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because everyone's digestive system is a bit different. So there's a few different brands I chat about with my swimmers. I don't say use the brand that I use, because like our digestive systems are so different. It's like our brains are different, right? Every human being has a different fingerprint, different brain as well. And we also have a completely unique digestive system. So just keep in mind that if something's working well for your friend or someone you know on the other side of the world, doesn't mean that that nutrition strategy is going to be right for you. You need to test things out. It's another good reason why you do those 6-hour swims leading into your channel swim, or why you should test your nutrition if you're training up for a 5K swim. Test your nutrition in your pool when you're training. Like, you can go to your swimming pool if you have access to one. I know some people don't at the moment, and I am sorry to hear that for those people. But let's just say you do have access to a pool. Test those powders, test those gels with your liquid in your sessions, like when you go hard in your main sets, if you're training up for a 5K. So when I say 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrates an hour, that would be for marathon swims, 20 kilometers plus. Now, if you're training up for a 5 or 10K marathon swim, I'd say the nutrition the night before, the day of the channel swim, your 5 or 10K swim is super important. So the morning of your swim, you want to have something light to eat, because your meal before your 5 or 10K swim is probably what energy that you're going to use. So the first 2 hours of any swim, you're generally relying on whatever carbohydrates you've had in your last meal. So if you swim a late morning 5-kilometer swim, most of your energies come from whatever breakfast you've had. So whatever breakfast you have should have some high energy and some slow release energy. So like jam on toast, muesli is really good, because you can have it with honey, a bit of high release energy, a bit of slow release energy. And then also just before your 5 or 10K swim, have something which is high energy. So have the gel or have the powder with water just before your swim, like literally 10 minutes before your swim, have a bottle set aside, and that's your drink that you know is your energy, a little bit of hydration in it, and of course some electrolytes, and have that before your 10-hour swim. And that will give you a boost in energy levels just before your swim starts. In a 5K swim, I wouldn't have another drink, but if it's over, as in a drink with energy and hydration. If it's over 5 kilometers, I think it makes sense in terms of energy levels to actually have another drink. Because even if you take 20 seconds to have the drink, yes, you've lost 20 seconds in time each time you drink, but your gain from having that energy ingestion is going to be more value than 20 seconds back, like much more. So you'll get an overall benefit, even though you have to briefly stop to have that drink.
I think that's a really important point, is that all these things are interconnected. That you're just saying, oh, you know, I didn't feel like eating at that last one. My stomach was a little upset, so I skipped that one. And then because you skipped that one, then you slowed down a little bit. And because you slowed down a little bit, you became closer to hypothermic. And because you became, and then it just spirals down and down. And that's why it's so important to be regular and consistent, and have all of these things working so well before. Would you agree?
Yeah, for longer swims, definitely. So for an English Channel swim, when you make your plan out and you're testing it in your 6-hour swims, you're actually training your body to take in hydration frequently, whether it's 30-minute intervals, 40-minute intervals, 45-minute intervals, whatever it is for you, because it's not normal. Like, there's no one I know in the real world who sits there and has energy drinks every 30 minutes or 45 minutes to hydrate for their energy during the day. Like, that's not how the normal world works. We have main meals, or we have little tiny bits of food throughout the day. So you have to actually give your body a chance to, you know, get into the habit to understand what it's like to extract energy from sports liquids. Like, that's weird. Like, train for that in your 6-hour swims, so that you can transfer that easily into your big marathon swim, because otherwise you'll get to the marathon swim and your body's like, no, I don't want to keep having this weird concoction. I don't know what you're doing. So your digestive system has its own unique personality. It's completely, by DNA, it's completely unique. And if you're not giving it a chance to get used to swimming constantly whilst having this strange sports formula, then it can freak out in the channel and go, nah, don't want to have this. And you don't want your body to have a conniption during a channel swim, because that's your big event. You've invested money, time, travel, your family may have come with you. The last thing you want is to pull out because your digestion's no good. But just on that point, I'm going to digress slightly, but I think it will be worth it. I hear sometimes, because I follow channel swimmers that pull out during a swim, because there's the Channel Swimming Association's Facebook page, and it's someone pulled out because their nutrition wasn't going well during the swim, and it often happens about halfway through the swim. Now, I think a lot of that isn't the nutrition not working during the swim. What happens with hypothermia is that, yes, you'll feel cold initially, but as it gets worse, what virtually no swimmer that I know realizes is that your organs start shutting down. And maybe that sounds obvious or not, but the first organ probably that's going to shut down is your digestive system. So when people are in the English Channel, because that is a cold water swim, and they can't take in foods, they can't digest the foods, they may think, oh, it's a nutrition thing. But if it's a cold water swim and you've been swimming for many hours and you've been feeling cold, it's actually probably the first of your organs that are starting to shut down. So when swimmers are pulled out of the English Channel and they say, my nutrition was no good, I was about halfway through or 2/3 of the way through, there is a good chance that actually they were just getting into hypothermia. They didn't feel super cold, but they could no longer take in any more nutrition. But they don't see it as a hypothermia issue. They just see it as, oh, my nutrition wasn't working for me. What do I do? Super, super common thing. And it's something I do want more people to realize, because if you're working on your cold water training, then you shouldn't get to the point where your stomach just refuses food. And I have had that issue when I've been doing double crossings of the English Channel, triple crossings of the English Channel, or attempting them. I know that I'm going downhill as soon as my body goes, I actually cannot ingest any more nutrition. So it's not that my nutrition is wrong, it's just that my body literally, I'll try and take a feed in and I can't suck the feed in. My stomach is saying no, and it's a physiological thing, you cannot take a feed in. So just keep in mind that sometimes it is a nutrition issue during a marathon swim, but if it's a really long marathon swim and it's a cold water swim, it actually could be the first of your organs starting to shut down in hypothermia. If you get out of the water, it's quickly reversible, so don't be super stressed about it, but it just means your swim is probably going to end very soon.
So the answer there then, when you go back to the drawing board, is not to go back and worry too much about your nutrition, but go back and practice more cold water training.
Lots of cold water training, and still lots of training your body to be taking liquids. So people get their 6-hour swims for the first time, because I've done this, I've been through just so many swimmers over so many years, and I see patterns. It's really interesting to watch people from different age groups, different genders, different parts of the world, and they're having these common experiences. The first 2 or 3 hours of their 6-hour swim, they've had their breakfast beforehand, they feel fine, they're like, oh, I'll just skip this feed, it's only the 6-hour swim. And a lot of them want to get mileage on their watches. So people are they're keeping track of their watches and think, well, I'll skip this feed, I'll save 30 seconds or a minute, and then I'll get further in my 6-hour swim. But if you're skipping those feeds, you're skipping the opportunity for your body to get used to what it's like to work on that nutrition and to work off it and to digest it. So have a really light breakfast so that your body wants to have the nutrition, and you can let yourself stop every interval, because it's easy to fall in the habit of, oh, I feel fine, I don't feel like I feel a need. Having a feed is not what you do when you feel like you need energy. So during the day, you might be someone who only eats when you're hungry. So you wait to have that hunger sensation, and then you have your feed. But with long distance swim, you shouldn't wait to be low in energy or wait to feel hungry or wait to feel dehydrated before you had your feed. Because the idea is if you're having feeds regularly, you actually prevent hunger, you prevent dehydration. So it's like a management strategy. It's not a on-demand strategy. Your crew shouldn't just give it to you when you request your feeds. They should be very carefully managed, preventing hypothermia, preventing hunger, preventing your energy levels dipping.
So, Chloe, just one little quick question before we finish there. The normal amount of time is usually like 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the distance, the race, the person, and everything. What do you normally do yourself, and what do you normally suggest for your the people you're coaching for feedings, between feedings?
Yeah, so I generally, look, as I've given the same spiel my swimmers that I'm giving everyone here. Everyone's a bit different. Trial different things. So trial different spatial feedings. Some people prefer 30-minute spaces between feedings. Some prefer 45. The ones that say, oh, I like to feed every hour, I'm like, Jesus, who's giving them nutrition advice? Sometimes channel swimmers get on like these free English Channel Facebook pages and they say them, like aspiring channel swimmers say the most bizarre things, and then other channel swimmers say that, and I'm just like, oh please, oh my God, where is this going? This is terrible. But it's not really for me to intervene. So you need to feed more frequently than every hour, because your body has a set point that it can only absorb a certain amount of carbs per hour. And for a lot of people, that's say 60 amounts of grams per hour. So let's just say you only feed every hour, then your body's not going to have a chance to absorb all of that feed, because it takes time for your body to actually process every feed. If you feed once every hour, that's not enough. Your body's not going to absorb it all. And what that means is you're going to be in energy deficit, where you're not absorbing enough glucose to make up for your expenditure. So I really implore you to feed more often than every hour. Whether it's every 30 minutes to 45 minutes, I guess, is going to be up to you. The other thing with feeding is rely mainly on liquid feeds. So when I say carbohydrates, it's in a liquid format. Don't rely mainly on your solid feeds, because it takes a lot of energy for the body to digest it. So energy is spent digesting your solid feeds. Also, blood's diverted to your stomach away from your working muscles. So the blood actually goes away from your arms and legs that are supposed to be taking you forward and gets sent to the stomach to digest solid food. So another suggestion is practice liquid feeds. So when I say feeds, you might be thinking I mean solid food. I mean liquid feed, nearly every feed. So I'm only having one solid feed across a channel swim just once.
Well, unfortunately, that brings us to the end. I could sit here and chat with you all day. There's all kinds of great stories about all your adventures. And like I say, ultimately, I think that's what it's all about, is the life adventure and life experiences and people you meet doing all these, what other people call crazy challenges and everything. But we loved having you on here, and I'm just looking at the chat group, and so did everybody else. So merci beaucoup from some people, and thank you very much, and thanks so much. And we all enjoyed it very much, Chloe. Thanks a lot. And for everybody else out there too, Dylan, myself, and the team at GSS are lining up a few more surprises and things coming up. Like everybody, we had to adjust and pivot with COVID and everything, but there's an end in sight. So hopefully this inspires everybody and gets you back at it, or gets you back thinking about it with the light at the end of the tunnel and something to aspire for this year. And hopefully we'll see you all at some GSS races, and maybe even the English Channel. So thank you very much, Chloe, and I will end it there.
Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you